Greetings and welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. I am your host, Rashid Muhammad. I'm going to bring in our co-host and let him tell everyone good morning. This is our co-host. Let me see if I. There you go. There you go. How's it going today, brother?
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum
Happy
salam.
Ramadan to everybody today.
Yeah, Ramadan Mubarak. Everybody, happy Ramadan. Now, before we get into the geopolitics, before we get into all the stuff that the rundown, it's just something I want to ask you about, and that is the crime spree that just recently took place across the country. And why do you think that is? Well, I know, and I think you know, but why do you think this so-called crime spree that took, what is it, on Black Friday or after Black Friday, has gotten little to no play in the media today?
Say
Do
that
you
again.
Why do you think the crime spree that just took place recently on Black Friday or around Black Friday has gotten little to no uh, media play, and why aren't they called looters like and rioters like when people are protesting for rights? What say you?
I, 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 I I say it's the fall of America. That's what that is. Everybody sees what's going on, and it's mainly they say a lot of black people is doing it, but we see it's the fall of America. But that's all it is. You
Well,
gotta wait and see. Huh?
there's a lot of like videos that I saw and a lot of pictures that I saw that it was not mainly black people doing this. And this was organized. Now, one thing you cannot blame an ignorant or someone that is not educated in the uh like the urban community that is like never wanting to cooperate with each other, and yet at the same time you're saying that they are that coordinated, and at the same time they all putting on hoods and longs to make sure that you can't see the skin color of their hands, their face, anything. Why is that done, and who did that?
It's the powers that be. They preparing it. It's a how to say it's preparing the people for what's coming, and that's the reason why they're doing stuff like that. They're
Yeah,
like I said, maybe where you was at your part of the country, but mainly on mainstream media that I've seen out here is a lot of black people run around there doing that, and it's
yeah.
not only black people, but there's a lot of them doing their society is in the fall. Like you played on the other uh, platform. What did that scientist say? By 2:30,
They'll be
he got
writing the history.
2:30. Yeah,
Yeah,
he giving himself an extra 5 years. But
actually,
Allah's
actually,
always
actually, when the scholar was saying that, he wasn't saying that the fall would be by 2:30. That's not what he was saying. He was saying that the fall is happening now, and that the scholars would be writing about the fall in the year 230. That's what he was.
yeah
I mean 2030. So
yeah. Well, in 2030 they won't be writing anything.
yeah,
You got to have a pen and paper or a computer to write something, and they won't be writing anything, nothing at
so
all.
okay. So now that what do you see, and put it in layman's terms. I'm sorry, my computer, my camera, it keeps moving a little bit, so you're gonna and we got to try to adjust it a little bit, so those of you who are listening and who will be listening and viewing later, please pardon us and forgive us. But put it in layman's terms for everyone, believers and non-believers. Where do you think the political climate is going in America, and what do you see happening as shortages continue to grow? They impose more and more fascist lockdowns and laws. The color divide continues to explode, and the wealth divide continues to explode. And at the same time, on the outside of America's borders, she keeps pushing nations to war. What do you see domestically
Well,
this going in America?
We all we have to do is once again go to our Rosetta Stone, the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He is the one that's giving us the future. If you want to see what's going to take place, read the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's teaching. The messenger said that he met with God, and everything that he said is coming true. I mean, those distractors and people that hated his guts uh, wanted to ignore him. But the closer we get into the end of the grace period, the more his stuff is coming true. I was talking with another older brother the other day. He was saying that the messenger said it's going to be a race riot in this country. As worse as anything you have ever seen. You can't stop this. When Allah puts pressure on the empire or pressure on the leadership, then they're going to put pressure on the people down to the bottom. And that take place. You see, this is the reason why the white man around America is mad. What the man said, he looking about what he used to have, not what he's got now. See, he sees everything falling around him, and he's looking and say, hell, my father didn't have this. I didn't have this. So what in the world is going on? He is angry at what he is seeing taking place. His country is systematically being taken apart piece by piece. That's what has happened with that. As I was taught over 40 years ago, brother, one day you see all these, we had a whole lot of supermarkets out here in California. One day they're going to start whittling them down, one after the other. And then one going to merge with this one and one going to merge with that. Then you have 2, 3, or 4. Then you have 2 or 3. Then you have 1 and 2. Then they going to go out. It's what the messenger said is taking place. His supply chain is being broken down, not only in America, but throughout the world. Throughout the world is being broken down. This is not just an American problem. This is a global problem. And the only way it could happen is the Lord of the worlds deemed it to take place. Just like on this background to the nation of Islam, where the messenger was talking with this Jewish scholar. And the messenger was saying that they were talking, and the messenger was saying about scripture coming forward, and then the Jewish scholar said, I don't believe none of that stuff. I don't believe none of that stuff. And the messenger said, even though it's coming to pass, that's right. He have to be shown this. These people do not believe in any scripture and stuff. They say, yeah, I know what it says, but unless I witness it for myself, I ain't gonna believe it. So now it's being witnessed for them to see themselves. The scholars of this society know this is going to take place. They can't stop it. But for the 85% are the people who are non-scholars, they can't see it until it's right on the heels.
Yeah. I want to play something. I had to cut this into 2 clips. And this was about 9 years ago. You know, we played it on the Star and Crescent Report about 9 years ago, 9 years ago. And this is by a scholar who coined the term full spectrum dominance, Mr. F. William Engdahl. And in an interview that he gave, and this was nearly a decade ago, he was talking about the situation facing the world, especially the situation facing America. And he was asked the question about, and I'm paraphrasing, can she rebound? Can she get out of this? And his reply was, not even Jesus Christ could reverse the situation that is going on. He is so adamant. He was so adamant that there is no way to turn back the hands of time and the hands of prophecy, and how events are metastasizing and manifesting the fall of America and the collapse of the Western world. Because it was about 10 minutes and roughly 20 seconds, I had to cut the video not in half, but in 2 parts. One is longer than the other. For those of you who will be listening and viewing, and those of you who are listening and viewing now, I want you to have patience with us, because there's so much said. And remember, this was said nearly a decade ago about the situation.
it reminds me of what you just saying about what FD. It's like a man standing in an avalanche and he can hold it back with his hand.
Yeah, yeah, and so much. But think about the debt crisis. I mean, and what people should understand is that the stuff that is taking place and that is underway, this is not happening, or they are not happening in separate rooms. All of it is connected, and so it reminds me of a dam that has fissures in it, and it's leaking a little bit, and the guy puts gum at one of the fissures, thinking that it's going to stop up the cracks, and then you see more cracks come out, more fissures come out, and before you know it, he's standing there saying, "Well, if I just put both of my hands up, I can stop the dam from leaking and breaking." It's absolutely insane.
It's like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, at the end of time, he would have different things breaking out all around the country. He'd be like a man with a brush fire trying to put it out with his feet. He stop over here, and the next thing you know, it happened over there, and pretty soon the whole thing is in flames. This is America.
Yeah. And so I want them to hear what a scholar, Mr. F. William Engdahl, who is a respected scholar globally and has written multiple books. And I want you to listen to what he says about the situation in part 1 and part 2. So we'll go here. And this is an interview courtesy of RT, as a matter of fact, before we go here, so that we have no blowback or no problem from YouTube. Let me put the disclaimer up for a few seconds, because if I don't, they'll come up with some excuse why to suspend or to ban us again or to delete the channel. So here is the disclaimer. Okay, now that we've had the disclaimer, here's part 1 of that.
Joining us today is best-selling author and economist William Engdahl. He's been writing on issues of energy, politics and economics for more than 30 years. Thank you for joining us today. Recently, we've seen several American banks beat forecasts and record an increase in profit. So is the worst now over for the world's economy?
This is by no means a sign of the end of the crisis. I estimate that we're perhaps 40% into the losses alone in the U.S. real estate sector. And these banks are, when we talk about the banks, we're talking really about at most 7 or 8 huge institutions that are at the center of this crisis, and not tens of thousands of smaller banks in the U.S.
So in your opinion, do you think it's too soon to be optimistic?
It's absolutely too soon to be optimistic in the U.S. The U.S. is the heart of a global problem, the core of the problem. And U.S. financial and banking deregulation since the end of the 1990s is the proximate cause of the problem. And that is a process now that is going to put the U.S. into what I call 10 years of hell. It's going to be worse in some respects than the Great Depression of the 1930s for most Americans. And everything that the current administration and the previous administration have done about the problem is merely going to make it worse for the actual economy.
So now let's shift to Eastern Europe. Now, you've written at great length about the drama that's unfolding there. So could you perhaps paint us a picture about the situation there at the moment, and which countries are most affected?
The problem in Eastern Europe is if you will, a derivative problem of the problem of cheap credit coming out of Wall Street over the last 7 years. And as the Fed lowered its interest rates after 2002, partly to create this real estate bubble and to feed the Wall Street banks' securitization process, the interest rates worldwide came down, the European interest rates and so forth. So banks in Europe were able to borrow money very cheaply and lend it out to Eastern European countries that were in the European Union, like Poland or Hungary or the Czech Republic. I don't see it as the same kind of crisis as the derivatives-driven crisis in the U.S. banks, because there is a real housing deficit after 50 years or so of the controlled economy, command economy, under the Warsaw Pact Soviet Union era. And people do have jobs. This isn't derivative speculation off the books. This is simply normal banking loans. And what the EU governments have done in one form or another is to step in with IMF funds. I'm not a fan of the IMF in any way, but the purpose of the funds was to stabilize the currency so that it doesn't become a speculative target and make the crisis worse. I think for the moment it's quote unquote under control. It doesn't have the leverage potential that the American crisis has.
And Russia is currently in a similar situation, with rumours that many banks will soon go bust if more negotiation doesn't happen with the West sometime soon. So what do you think is the best option available to Russia?
Russia has to, and this is, I think, one thing that the current government and when Vladimir Putin was president, I think he very much tried to do, is to bring the crucial elements of a sovereign nation back under state control. That doesn't say going back to the era of central planning communism, but certainly to control your currency, to control your credit system. These are things that any sovereign nation should rightly have. And in terms of the banking crisis, perhaps there are some banks that would do better if they were nationalized. If the losses are too great, at least nationalized so that they could be then cleaned up from the toxic waste and the bad investments, and that the real economy comes out of this as the healthy factor and not pure financial speculation for the good of a few oligarchs at the expense of the Russian economy and the Russian people.
So how long do you think it's going to take before we see the end of this recession?
The point is, we're at an epochal change. This is something that happens perhaps every 400 or 500 years. This isn't a once-in-a-decade recession that we're living through. And I call it in my new book, which was just released in German, the decline of the American century. This is a terminal decline, as you had with the British Empire after World War I. And it wouldn't matter if Jesus Christ were the President of the United States today. There would be nothing he could do to reverse that decline process. You would almost have to reorganize and start from scratch, because the cancer of this financial system has embedded itself so deeply that they've destroyed industrial technology in the United States. They've outsourced manufacturing over the past 25, 30 years to Asia, to Eastern Europe, all over the world. The American elite has rotted itself from inside out over the past 30, 40 years, since the early 70s. So Europe, including Russia, very much so including Russia, or let's say Eurasia. Eurasia is a vast continent which has every resource man could imagine for anything that we would want to build economically. It has the brain power, it has the scientific talents. We haven't totally destroyed that, as has been the case in the U.S. And that is all we need. It has the raw material. Russia has unlimited technology for unlimited resources of natural gas and oil. The Russian geology is light years ahead of American and Western geology, geophysics, let's say, because it is based on real earth science, real physics, and not on hocus pocus to hide the fact of how much oil the world has. So there is nothing that's lacking. The decision in Western Europe, in the European Union, is for many European elites, I know this from discussions here in Germany in the recent years, they have to make a choice, and they're schizophrenic about that choice right now. Either strengthen the Atlantic Alliance with Washington and go down with the sinking Titanic called the American century, or carefully try to reorient the supertanker called the European Union and build bridges of cooperation with Russia above all, with China above all for economic markets and whatnot.
And what are your thoughts on the US President Barack Obama? Do you think he is the man to...
So, some of the main things, now this was done roughly 10 years ago, like 10 years ago. And when he was asked about the current climate, economic climate in America and in the Western world, he specifically stated that not, the terminal decline is such that not even Jesus Christ could stop this, and that this means that we would have to go from scratch and start anew. Sounds like somebody from Sandersville, Georgia, right? That sounds like
You right
somebody from
about that.
Sandersville, Georgia.
As I said before, you know, he's the Rosetta Stone of the future, the Lord of the universe, deposited his wisdom in Elijah Muhammad. And everything Elijah Muhammad was saying is a whole lot further than in the past than Ingdog and all of his minions were talking about. When the messenger was saying it, the American economy was like a steam engine rolling down the tracks that nobody could stop. China, Japan, and all them other countries, their goods were considered junk. America was the standard for everybody. You had a big old Cadillac, and I mean, everybody wanted a Cadillac and all of the goods of America. Now it's turned around, as the messenger said it would take place. And then you warned us that this day cannot be avoided. What me and the brother here are telling you is there's no one else out there telling you what Elijah Muhammad taught. But the scholars and scientists of this world, they didn't miss him. They knew that he was the last messenger of Allah by what he revealed to them. And you can't stop this. What the man said the Quran tells them, Allah just brings down nations
by degrees,
little by degrees, from which they perceive not.
Yeah.
See, it's like a man with cancer. You think you're doing fine. But the rot or the destruction the foundation has already been laid. And it's just a matter of time before you fall dead.
Yeah. And there was some key words Mr. Ingdahl said when he was talking about the situation facing the global West led by the United States. And so in there he said, and I quote, he says, apocalyptic changes are going on. And so you want to find out, what does that mean? You want to find out what does that mean concerning today? What effect does that have on what we see and what we view today? According to Wikipedia, it says pertaining to an apex. Now, so what he's saying is that we're at the apex, we're at the zenith of all that the Western world can do. So there's nothing else but decline, because they've ran out of technology. They've ran out of progressive learning. They've run out of all these things like manufacturing, everything that once the society and the system was based on. They've run out of. All they have is corruption, greed, exploitation, fear mongering, and all of that. And so again, he says, and I want to be clear, because he says America is the problem. This is what he said. And so we go to the dictionary on Google, and the meaning of the word problem means a matter or situation regarded as unwelcome or harmful and needing to be dealt with and overcome. So it says difficulty, issue, trouble, worry, complications. So what he was saying, that America is the core, the root core of the collapsing financial system. She lies at the root core of the collapsing political architecture. And as we see the global supply chains implode, and we see inflation spiraling out of control, again, it goes back. He said that America, her policies I'm talking about, her actions I'm talking about, is the root cause of it. So when he says one thing, when someone is talking to you, it's good to try to hear them, not just listen, but hear them, and then understand the words that they're saying. Because sometimes you can listen and you think you know the meaning of something, but when you look up the definition, the words change the entire scope and view of the conversation. So again, also he used these words. I want to just pinpoint these words because they have so many meanings. And adds so much emphasis on the decline of the Western world and the fall of America. And it is very, very necessary for you to understand definitions, okay? Because without definition, what are you? If you don't understand what someone's saying to you, it's just like somebody talking to you in a different language. You gain little to no benefit from it. So again, he says that America and the West is in terminal decline. And I put this in, I put it in the Google search engine. And it came up, it says terminal decline or terminal cognitive decline is the gradual decline in cognitive functions that occur as a function of time before death. Now, Rashid said that Allah brings you to naught little by degrees. This is exactly what Mr. F. William Engdahl is saying when he says terminal decline. Because if we understand, he says terminal decline or terminal cognitive decline is the gradual decline. That means little by little, all right, or degree by degree. It is the gradual decline in cognitive functions that occurs as a function of time before death. And we can also apply that to the political system. If we look at the political system, the judicial system, and the economic system, we can now understand that their mental makeup, their mental capacity is suffering because they're not making policies or they're not implementing policies that would best affect their livelihood and security. They are constantly pursuing greed and advantage instead of security and righteousness. So that too is a symptom or sign of cognitive decline. Because think about it, when you have someone that has been admitted to the hospital and they say, well, they're terminal, there's no hope for them. The closer they get to death, the more irrational thinking they have. If you look at America's domestic policies, and I often tell you that her international policies is a mirrored reflection of her domestic policies, you can see America, the republic, America as the politicians in the political system, the educational system, and the economic or financial system is in a state of terminal decline. This is evident. If you go and look at the published news articles from the Eastern world, in the Middle East, in Africa, in South America. I'm not talking about the stuff that they promote for you. I'm talking about the real on the ground newspapers. All of them are talking about America being a pariah state, America being a bully, America being a declining hegemon that is acting irrational and trying to, I have to make this point, then I'll bring you in. America acting irrational and trying to bully other nations to try to maintain her grip. This is a part of cognitive decline. And my wife, she works in the hospital. She's a charge nurse. And so she tells me sometimes about how when they get patients, and she worked in the critical care area, and how when these people have been given a no revive order, and so they just leave them there, they give them care until they die. She says these people start hallucinating. These people start doing things which a person who is living a healthy life sees as irrational. And so this is what Mr. Engdahl is saying to the people about America. And if we look at America's policies today, domestically and internationally, they bear witness to what he said 10 years ago. I'm gonna bring a point home, but I'm gonna bring Rashid in to make his point.
Not only in America, but like as you said, around the world, that's also a fall, yes, condition of his fall. The other people not believing him and not looking on him as what did he say? The city on the hill, the great shining America. And now everybody looks at him as like as the scriptures say, a harlot, an old used up harlot that everybody gets frightened at the look of her by the mere fact of, like you were saying about her politics and stuff. The messenger told us that the Savior was going to divide the white man up like he divided the black man of America. Half of the people want Donald Trump. The other half of the people don't want Donald Trump. That's division. And you got a couple of these people in there who, in politicians, who advocate going out killing another politician. If that is not a fall of a society, I don't know what is. They literally telling other, see, all they have to do is say it to some of their minions, and then he go and do it. They sit back and I didn't tell nobody. But when a society is you've seen Rome fall. This is the modern day Rome falling. When you go and tell us, I want to go kill a leader, I want to go kill half the Senate and blow them all up, and there's no agreement, there's no laws or nothing to be that you can stop this type of a mindset from going on. It's here.
Yeah, and to show you how this not only permeates and is pervasive over the ruling class, if you look to the domestic class, how can you justify this? To justify people ransacking the very capital that house your elected officials who govern your nation, and they are armed to the teeth, and they are trying to kidnap and kill and imprison the elected officials. That is justified as patriotism, right? And you see a young boy who's 17 years old, Mr. Rittenhouse, who says, I'm going down there. Now, mind you, the parents must have, they have no say whatsoever. This 17-year-old guy just decides, remember that he's 7 at the time, he's 17. So he's still under the authority of his parents.
Didn't the parents
he can just say, that's right. And this is what I'm getting to. And he goes down there at nighttime. I'm going to protect these businesses. The parents are not, but he is. He's going down there with a specially made semi-automatic rifle that is made for war and to inflict casualties, multiple casualties, because it is a constant, automatic. You don't have to do much. Just squeeze the trigger, and it's not pop. It's pop, 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 pop.
He's not going to protect these businesses in his state. He goes to another state to protect businesses.
And on top of that, you can justify that as patriotism, but yet a man jogging down the street and is ransacked and murdered, you can say, he shouldn't have been in the neighborhood. Or see, this is a sign of cognitive decline, because you rationalize your hatred for another person, you rationalize your madness, and you can justify because the person looked like you. Think about this. They are still after O.J. Simpson to this very day for a crime that he was said to not have committed according to their own. Remember, when Rittenhouse is acquitted, they say, well, he's been acquitted by the law. But when O.J. Simpson is acquitted, he's murdered. He's a murderer. He murdered these people. And they were so adamant
the jury
about
system was null and void then. They made a mistake.
And they say that he is such a bad person that they went after him in another way to get him. They set him up to send him to prison. How the madness of this system, I'm telling you, the double standards, this is what's driving racial tensions, because the system itself was set up on racism and exploitation and white exceptionalism. And these are facts that white America, these are inconvenient truths that most white America does not want to admit to. And this is what's helping the decline in the atmosphere of America, and it is breaking the unity of America, and it is causing great divisions of America, because you can't have a set of rules for you when you say justice. These are patriots, but these are thugs and murderers, right? Now, I'm bringing a point home here, because what do you think is more patriotic? People ransacking, trying to kidnap elected officials who govern the republic, because they disagree with them. Or, watch this, people who are protesting to stop police brutality and end the brutality of the system and truly make people equal under the eyes of the law, which is more patriotic. But when you have the people are saying, stop this madness of killing people because of their color, the mainstream media kicks it to the side, pushes it to the side. Oh, those are just some Black Lives Matter people. And then so they make mockery and come up with White Lives Matter. They make mockery and come up with Blue Lives Matter. Do you see the madness of this? And this is all set in stone, as Mr. Engdahl says. It is a part of the cognitive decline of the American empire. And it's reflected in her policies abroad. How in the world can I borrow trillions of dollars from you, Brother Rashid, and you tell me, my son moved out into my garage, but I want my garage back, and then you go out there to get it, and me and my family are out there with AK-47s and bazookas telling you, no, you got to get this back democratically.
You know how you can do that? Because you're exceptional. The rules that govern the universe don't apply to you.
Right.
Donald Elijah Muhammad teaches us that, first of all, how did America come into being? Let's go back to the beginning. He stole and murdered off millions of people. How did he become rich? He went and kidnapped a bunch of people and had them working for him for 310 years. And he ain't stopped his evil. But the foundation, what the scriptures say, woe to he who sets up his house on a bloody foundation. And that's America. They are just getting out the law of what they reap what you sow. America is starting to reap what she sows. Nobody around the planet Earth wants to think that America, like you were saying, is a great place to go to now. Everybody see her ugliness and her lies and the deceit. What is it? In 240 years of America, right? He done been at war for all but 9 years.
Yeah.
And then run around, got a nerve enough to talk about somebody else starting a war maker, or somebody else's democratic rights. And he is the king of double standards.
Mm-hmm. And so, and as we make these points here, I have not lost sight of the words that Mr. Engdahl used when he talked about the terminal decline of America in the Western world. He also said, as he said that America is the problem, he said she is the core problem. According to the dictionary, the word core means the tough central part of various fruits containing the seeds, the central or most important part of something. So when we look at global problems, you see America. She's talking about that the Venezuelan elections are illegitimate because the people she wanted didn't win. She's down in Honduras talking about those are not the will of the people, even though the will of the people voted out the people that America imposed through a coup. A coup, I might add you. We look at Bolivia, the same thing happens. We look at Argentina, the same thing happens. We look over in Africa. She's all of these terror organizations. Prior to America wanting to put more bases over there, nobody even heard of Boko Haram. Nobody even heard of these so-called terrorist organizations. They were only made, and notice America did not just know the names of the terrorist organizations. She knew the leaders. She knew the mid-command level people. How in the hell is this possible if she's not pulling the strings? These people come out of nowhere. She knows where they're from. She knows their family members, all of this stuff. But people don't take the time out to look at this. But the destabilization of Africa is okay, so long as France, Germany, Canada, America, and all of the other colonial powers are able to siphon off the resources and the manpower and the brain power to keep the Western world afloat. This is very dear to me, brother. I'm gonna let you come in just a second, but this is very dear to me because of the hypocrisy of America. And nobody wants to point this out. if you look to the problems of Africa and you look at the so-called migrant problems, which is amazing to me that when they talk about migrant problems coming to Europe, they only show pictures in the MSN of black people, when in reality, most of the people who are coming to Europe are Arabs or so-called Arabs that are flooding see, they put these negative connotations out there, just like if a person is arrested in America. Again, you see how this mirrors the foreign policy mirrors the domestic policy. When a person is accused of a crime or a person is arrested, if there's a black person, they show that most times than not, they show that person's face. When it is a white person, most times and not, they do not show that person's face. Even in the alternative media, that is the case. This is what I'm telling you. There's a double standard. There's racism ingrained and embedded in the heart of the system. So Mr. Engdahl says America lies at the core. She is the core to the cognitive decline of the republic and the cognitive decline of the Western world. And by that, and Rashid, I'm gonna let you get your say in just a second. But by that, look at the problem in Africa. Before they bombed Libya and overthrew and sodomized Muammar Gaddafi, there was little to no migrant problem. As a matter of fact, if you go to YouTube, you can Google this. Muammar Gaddafi warned the West what would happen if he was removed from power. He warned them, and everything that he warned them about is now happening. And now the Western world is talking about we have a migrant problem. If you get your behind out of Africa and leave the Africans to govern for themselves and make decisions for themselves without French military bases, without German military bases, Belgian military bases, US military bases there, then these people won't come to you. You bomb their civilizations to the Stone Age. You sanction their economies and break them, and then you start whining that they're at your door to eat. Do you see the mental disconnect from the policies? They don't want to accept the responsibilities of their own policies. What say you on this? And then we'll continue on.
All I was saying was that that's how they became rich. Stealing from Africa. The Western nations, they don't got no natural resources. If I can't go and steal from and plunder from Africa, then I'm not wealthy, right? That's exactly what they were doing. And as far as go back to Elijah Muhammad, he can't help himself. He's a mischief maker, a troublemaker. What the man say? If you got 4 or 5 people on the corner standing around, he got to get in his nose and they say, "What y'all talking about?" He cannot help himself from starting trouble. The people from Europe, when they came out of Europe, they're a natural mischief maker, war maker, and trouble. Well, they call themselves conquerors, but that's not what the scriptures call these people. They call them murderers, the man of sin. All right, brother.
So on that note, and this is piggybacking off what Rashid is saying, and also reaffirming the things that I just said. Mr. Engdahl goes to the point, and he says that we need to determine the heart of the problem. America lies at the heart of the problem. At the heart. Now, to understand what he means and the emphasis of what he's saying, all I did, so this means that you can do it also, is put the words meaning of the heart of a problem. And there's about 992 million results, right? And so the first result comes up says to discover, determine, and or understand the essential core or most important aspects of some issue, problem, or topic at hand. So as he described to us, the economic ineptitude and malfeasance of the Western world, we know that at the core lies America. When we look at the economic or the political malfeasance and ineptitude that is globally, the core of it is America. If we look at the war, think about this. She is 10,000 miles away on Russia's border. She's telling Russia not to deploy troops in Russian territory. I want you to understand that. Think about it, if Russia did that to her. This would be declared an act of war. She's 10,000 miles away in Russia's brother's house and telling Russia not to knock on his brother's house. That is absolutely insane. And she said, well, Russia is trying to invade Ukraine. You have invaded Ukraine. You have troops there. You're talking about what Russia is about to do. You actually have troops and weapons there. And you don't belong there. And Russia sits back and says, well, we have no troops there. While Russia is trying to make the West believe that they have no troops there, the West continues to pour troops and weapons into Ukraine. That is tantamount to me going to Rashid's brother's house, telling Rashid, I was driving the other day and I saw you 6 blocks away from your brother's house. If you get 5 blocks away from him, we might have some problems, because now I don't want you there. I want you to be at your place. Do you see the magnitude of the insanity of U.S. policies to try to dictate to them between family members what they should and should not do? This is the American policy. Go ahead.
It is like a king who's going to be overthrown. Only thing he can see is to rule, right? That's all he can see is, you better do as I say because I've been ruling. Well, now you're ruling up. I don't care. I'm still acting like the king. And this is what he's doing. You better do this, and you better do that, and you better do this, or else. That's the key. And in the fall of his society, or fall of his world, the other people around the world are not going on. He been it's like we said before, it's the old 3-card Molly. he been sitting up around putting a magic trick on everybody. Well, where the P at? Where the P at? Where the P at? Where the P at? The P is in his hand.
Yeah,
it's not on the table. It's right. So that's exactly what's taking place. He's just deceiving everybody, and now everybody then caught up to his games, and nobody want to have anything to do with it.
Yes, sir. And so it's just amazing that the average person does not pick up on this. And piggybacking on what we were just saying, I'm going to play a clip, because remember that NATO, which is the North Atlantic Terrorist Organization, they are the greatest terrorist organization on the face of the planet Earth. They bomb more nations under the guise of humanitarian missions and freedom and democracy than any other nation. They destabilize more governments, and more people than any organization ever. I want you to hear, because you know that America dictates what should and should not be said to nations from NATO. So when you hear NATO speak, you're actually hearing America telling what she wants to be done and what she's saying. Because remember, Mr. Stoltenberg is only echoing what he heard the State Department and the War Department of the United States say. And they are warning Russia. Think about this. Again, let's go back to what I said earlier. I'm at Rashid's brother's house, and I have a double-barrel shotgun. I have some grenades. I have put Gatling guns all around his yard, and I told him I saw him through binoculars 6 blocks away, and he better not come to his brother's house, even though I'm illegitimately there. And I live in the state of Florida, and Rashid lives 6 blocks away from his brother in California. The insanity of this that people just don't get. This shows you the cognitive decline of the political class and the republic as a whole. Say what you say, then I'm gonna play this clip after you say what you have to say.
What you also, we got to understand that when they're talking about the world, United States, Europe, Australia, is a small part of the population of the planet Earth. It's a group of thugs then jumped over and taken over, and then my rule is for everybody else, right? I got maybe 40 million people, and then I should dominate what 2 billion people should say. Because why? I'm exceptional.
Now we're gonna piggyback off this same, discussion that you and I are having. And I want you to listen to Jens Stoltenberg, who is a hawk and he is corrupt to the core because he gets paid these kickbacks for being general secretary of the largest and the greatest terrorist organization known to man, NATO. And I want you to hear how he's echoing America's policy. All right. And remember, and I want everyone to remember that NATO is an organization made up of colonial powers that cannot escape your thinking. That is something that is always missing in the discussion. And why would colonial powers who have dominated the world get together and form an organization to try? The reason is they want to stay the dominant powers. They want to stay exploiting the people, but they want to do it on a more conservative way where people will say, you know what, they're fighting for good. They're fighting for democracy. When you can't point to anywhere that they have had operations in that has been a success, that has brought successful democracy, as they said, to that nation without tens of thousands of people being killed, tens of thousands of institutions being bombed, and nations being set back by at least 2 to 3 decades. I want you to listen to what
he considers that a successful democracy when he come in and steal up everything. I remember one time Minister Collins say when he come over there and tell you that he want a piece.
He wanted a piece of
he wanted the biggest piece of the part of the country.
yeah. And so and I want to remind people about what's going on in the Ukraine, because it's reflecting what's going on in America with her domestic policies here. But I also want to say this. Let us not forget, this is also missing in the context of America over there. Ukraine, outside of Russia, is the underbelly of Russia and Europe. And from Zbigniew Brzezinski and others, they wrote that if they could separate Ukraine from Russia, they can prevent the reemergence of Russia as a rival power. This is what this is about. And remember that when they instituted the coup in Ukraine, they had their eyes set on Europe's largest coal reserves, which was in the eastern part of Ukraine, in the Donbass area, which so happened to go to Russia. And they wanted the base where Russia has in Crimea to reduce Russia to being a land power so that they can whitemail them through the threat of nuclear war. This is policy. You can go Google this stuff. Also, Ukraine at one time was considered the breadbasket of Europe. And so Europe was reliant on the so-called that fertile land to supply their needs, but it just so happened the war during the war in the Donbass of Ukraine, and it got split off. Some of the fertile land went to the Donbass region. That's why America is putting war material over there. All of the coal reserve, the Ukrainian government has to buy coal from the Donbass region that is under Russia's protection. So things didn't work out, and Crimea seceded from the Ukraine and gave Russia security through the strategic military bases there in Sevastopol area. So all of these things have broken out in the wrong way for America. And so listen, America does not know how to just relent and say, you know what, I messed up. They don't know how to look at a mistake and say, you know what, I'm not doubling down on that mistake, because that right there, the risks outweigh the rewards. So we lost in this area. Let us go and focus on something else. No, they double and they triple and quadruple down on a failed policy. And they do that here. Do you see how not the policies, the international policies, is a reflection of the domestic policies? But again, let us go to this clip here for you to understand what is going on. To threat this is, as I said, me threatening Rashid about Rashid's family members, and I don't know his family members, but I'm camped out at his brother's house with every gun imaginable, telling Rashid, man, you're getting closer to this area. You 6 blocks away. If you come 5 blocks away, we might have to threaten you with consequences. The insanity of the policies of America can be seen domestically and internationally. Just listen to this, okay?
We will address Russia's continuing military buildup in and around Ukraine. This is the second time this year that Russia has massed large and unusual concentration of forces in the region. This includes heavy capabilities like tanks, artillery, armored units, drones, and electronic warfare systems, as well as combat-ready troops. This military build-up is unprovoked and unexplained. It raises tensions and it risks miscalculations. We will also discuss the situation in the region with Georgia and Ukraine. It is also clear that if Russia uses force against Ukraine, that will have costs, that will have consequences, and therefore we continue to call on Russia to de-escalate. NATO's role in arms control, disarmament and non-proliferation. We have a strong track record on these issues. I also welcome the clear message in the platform that Germany will stand by its commitments in NATO. I welcome also the decision to continue to be part of NATO's nuclear sharing arrangements, which are essential for our deterrence, and it also is a multinational framework within NATO to make sure that European allies take part in this critical part of our deterrence and defence posture. I also welcome that the platform clearly states that there is a need to invest in equipment, in capabilities for the Bundeswehr, for the German armed forces, and I expect Germany to continue to invest more because the NATO commitment to invest more is based on very specific capability targets for each and every ally, including Germany.
So, in this, you hear Jens Stoltenberg talk about they have a good track record, which if anyone has common sense know that NATO and America has a terrible international track record. And by the way, I might add something to this. While they are pressuring Iran in the so-called Vienna talks, or the European talks about the JCPOA, which all of them except Iran violated. When Jens Stoltenberg said this, he let the cat out the bag about NATO's nuclear sharing. They share nuclear weapons, talking about as a part of their national defense. That is in violation of international law. Do you know that? They are in violation of the non-proliferation treaty, the one that they're trying to make Iran a subservient to. And this tantamounts to crimes against humanity and war crimes, for those of you who don't know that. So as Mr. Stoltenberg says that he lets the cat out the bag. And what he was doing, he was trying to cower Russia by mentioning nuclear weapons sharing. That's what he was doing. But in reality, he let the cat out the bag. And this would not have been done if America had not given him the okay to say these things. But there was a response to this, though. See, every action has a reaction. And every motion, every move has a counter move. Law of nature. That's right. Law of nature. And so Vladimir Putin and Russia responded to this. And I'm going to play the response to this, so you all be careful. Let me play this this exclaimer one more time. I have to play this at least twice during the show so we have no feedback or blowback from YouTube, okay? So give us a second as this plays.
Over now to a new video. Over now to a new video into the newsroom. Russia's Navy successfully test-fired a hypersonic missile on Monday. The missile was launched from the White Sea, hitting a target over 200 miles away. Now, the launch is the latest in a series of tests of Zircon missiles. The same missiles expected to enter service next year. It also comes amid rising tensions with Ukraine and the United States. Earlier today, Russian President Vladimir Putin added to the drama, sending a stern warning to the West and to NATO. While speaking at an online forum, Putin warned about the West and NATO deploying troops to Ukraine. Putin saying this: "The emergence of such threats represents a red line for us. I hope that it will not get to that, and common sense and responsibility for their own countries and the global community will eventually prevail." So to discuss all of the latest developments, we are joined now by managing editor of Covert Action magazine, Jeremy Kuzmarov. Jeremy, great to see you again. Jeremy, we know blasting off this missile was going to cause a stir, okay? Why do you think Russia did this, though?
Well, I think, Russia wants to show that they're strong, don't mess with us. And, the U.S. has been interfering in Ukraine for many years, since the 1990s, and especially since 2014, coup d'etat. And, the hostilities in eastern Ukraine seem to be escalating. So I think Putin wants to send a message that Russia is tough and not to mess with them.
Now, one of the big questions that has been on top of mind here is the United States seems to have this really, really gut-wrenching I guess, drive to be there for Ukraine, to help Ukraine. Mind you, we've got a lot of problems around the world. We have, genocide. We can't even feed our own people here in the United States. Why Ukraine? Why is the United States so obsessed with Ukraine?
Well, I think there's been a project, since the implosion of the Soviet Union, the United States has wanted to draw Ukraine and other Eastern European countries into the Western orbit, consolidate its influence and power in that entire region of the world. Central Asia is very rich in terms of oil and gas. Eurasia is considered, key to global domination by a lot of grand strategists like Zbigniew Brzezinski, who shaped U.S. foreign policy in that mindset. So for those reasons, the U.S. has invested very heavily in trying to pry Ukraine into the Western orbit, and has a government now in Ukraine that is a strong ally of the United States and very hostile and threatening towards Russia, and this could boil over into a major conflict.
You had earlier this week, you had NATO troops going to that German-Russian border. In the past, kind of looking at the history of all of this, we know that another country that NATO was very much trying to defend was Yugoslavia. And right now, Yugoslavia not doing so hot. So with these troops moving, again, to Germany and then all along that Ukrainian-Russian border as well, how do you picture all this playing out when you look at places like Yugoslavia?
Well, I think this is a very dangerous situation. Yugoslavia was broken up, and that was kind of a program that the United States and West was supporting to weaken Yugoslavia, so that they could assert greater influence and control in that region. And that was viewed by Russia as a very hostile policy. And I think Russia is looking and seeing very hostile Western action that are designed to increase its power and target Russia. And Russia is led by a more independent nationalist leader, and the U.S. has been interfering in Russia to try and undermine his government and potentially promote regime change there in Russia. So, the U.S. has been involved with these war games and exercises, and NATO has been expanding. They're trying to incorporate Ukraine now and Georgia into NATO, and NATO has expanded to numerous countries along Russia's border. So we're very much in the thick of a new Cold War, and from Russia's mindset, these are very hostile and threatening policies, and that's why Russia is reacting in the way that they are, to show strength and to try and cultivate their own alliances, like with Belarus, with China, and other countries in Eurasia. But I think it's a very dangerous environment right now, and I think Americans should be wary of this aggressive policy that's really provoking the Russians.
Jeremy Kuzmarov, thank you so much for joining us. Good to see you again.
Thanks for having me.
So we're seeing the provocations, but I want to bring to mind, I'm going to bring something up on the screen, and I'm going to scroll down so that you can see more of what I'm talking about. But before I do that, you see how America and NATO are constantly threatening Russia. Now, mind you, all one has to do is close their eyes and remove Russia for a second and put China in the thing. And they're using the same terms: Chinese aggression. We need deterrence. Russian aggression. We need deterrence. What if Russia decided to say, you know what, America, you are an international threat, so we need deterrence. So what we're going to do, we're going to deploy weapons to the Canadian-U.S. border, and then we're going to deploy weapons to the Mexican-American border, and we're going to now patrol the Gulf of Mexico on a continuous basis. How do you think America would respond? you know, she would
That-
respond with an act of war because she thinks that she's the, as Rashid and I keep telling you, she's the exception to the rules. So think about this, and I'm gonna let Rashid respond to this before I read a clip of this article. I want you to remember that nuclear war almost broke out because Russia had nuclear weapons deployed in Cuba, a sovereign nation that lies 90 miles from the southernmost tip of Florida. But America is deploying weapons roughly 20 kilometers or 9 miles or 10 miles away from Russia's border. Do you see the hypocrisy? Do you see how can this not lead to war? This is what I'm telling you. So respond, Rashid.
That's not how he operates. He's a king. You understand? This is how you got to look at his mindset. I'm a king. I rule. You do as I tell you to do. And if you don't do as I tell you to do, I'll kill you. That's the way the American government is doing with the rest of these people around the world. You see, when the Soviet Union fell, and then he was on top, he's riding the horse of leadership. And I can't conceive somebody else taking me off. All I'm going to do is act like everybody else got to be subservient to me. You know, China, you do what I tell you to do. Russia, you do what I tell you. What, you're not going to do what I tell you to do? I'll kill you. That's the way he's thinking about this. And that's how you got to understand. He's not looking at no fair play. Ain't no fair. I'm a ruler. Ain't no fair play. You do what I say. I'm telling you to do. And you see exactly what Donald Elijah Muhammad taught us. He is a mischief maker, a troublemaker. The people of Europe love to start trouble. And if they can't stop it, I'll come in and kill everybody. That's his solution. And that's another thing. His nuclear weapon. He thinks this is the end all of a nuclear weapon. He'll pull it out and threaten everybody. But if you start firing off nuclear weapons with Russia, and Russia start firing up nuclear weapons, then where you going to live at? It don't make any sense, does it? It's like the guy that blew the moon off the earth, the messenger said. He going to split the earth in two. Now, once you get rid of the earth, where you going to live at? It's a death wish.
Yeah. And if you look to the screen here, here's it. This is America's term. Russian aggression in Ukraine will lead to serious consequences. That's the U.S. And so in this article, it says any aggression by Russia. See, first of all, before I read this is what America does. Before while she's planning and plotting and deploying and she's preparing to make moves, she often accuses other people of what she's doing. Let us not forget, as I said earlier, and I was going to get to this point, and I let Rashid finish his point, because this has everything to do with the fallen empire. When America went into Ukraine, they stole all the gold. Do you know that? The same way that when they went into Iraq, they stole all the gold. Every nation that they go in, they steal the gold.
Libya.
They went into Libya, they stole all the gold. Matter of fact, the Libyans are still trying to fight for where all of those hundreds of billions of dollars in assets are, because they are all in Western banks. And the Western banks are saying that we can't give you the little bit we found, but we don't have any information about the hundreds of billions or the silver and gold reserves that Muammar Gaddafi had deposited so that Libya could make international transactions. They
stole the gold in Venezuela. They didn't go to war with it. They just took it. Just strong arm and took it.
So
I mean, to prove Elijah Muhammad's teachings correct, it's as easy as a nose on your face.
So listen, let me read a little bit of this article. Then we're going to read a little bit of Russia's response. Okay, it says any aggression by Russia toward Ukraine could trigger serious consequences, and Moscow should think twice, U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said on Tuesday in Latvia. Now, I want to remind you, Latvia is in Lithuania, right? That was a part of the Soviet Union. So not only was that place chosen for him to say what he said, it was a spit in the eye of the Russian Federation and a slap in the face. Look, we now stand on former Soviet territory, and we're telling you what not to do in former Soviet territory. Man, I'm telling you,
one second. What did George Bush tell that imbecile Gorbachev? We will not move anywhere near the former Soviet Union.
Yeah.
He was lying.
Yeah. Yeah. If you help bring down the wall, we will not move 1 inch. 1 inch.
If you help destroy yourself, we won't move 1 inch. It's just like somebody sitting in a house and you saying, let me get half of your house. But we won't mess with the other half.
Yeah. The insanity, I'm telling you, for me, I'm sitting here and I'm saying, these people, the average person cannot even sit down and critically view this stuff or see it. It's like they take this stuff hook, line, and sinker, and they don't study it or analyze what is being spoken or what is being written or what is said to them. And this is why they fall for the okie doke or fall for Western propaganda, because they don't take the time out to rationally think.
What did Gorbo say? The bigger the lie, the more the people will believe it. Right?
Yep.
And that's the Western media. All he had to do is keep repeating it and repeating it and repeating it. And the next thing you know, you walk outside and the man next door believes everything they say.
Yeah. So it says, any escalatory actions by Russia would be of great concern to the United States, as they would to Latvia, and any renewed aggression would trigger serious consequences. What they're trying to do is cower Russia. They're trying to see how far they can push Russia before Russia, because they think Russia is still scared of NATO, when Russia now has the military capability, according to NATO's own estimate, to wipe the floor with NATO forces and dispatch of them within 48 hours. This is what I'm saying. Go ahead.
But he still has that mindset. I am the king. He can't consider Russia as an equal because I'm the ruler.
Mm-hmm.
He can't see Russia. He don't want to put Russia as an equal because you're not my equal. You are my servant. And that's, look at how America deals with the rest of the planet Earth. I'm the ruler. And the only way that I'm going to stop being a ruler is I be taken off. And then he ain't gonna stop his evil. He from Russia to Paraguay to Namibia to some little island. He got to be in everybody's business, telling everybody what to do. That's America.
Yeah. And so in this other clip here that you see on the screen, this other article, Russia warns it won't back down in NATO standoff. See, even Russia has its limits. In America, like with China, you remember when China said, well, if there's troops in Taiwan, then China would move the military to take Taiwan. Then what America did was see if it was acceptable by exposing that she had a couple dozen troops there. Then when China said, and China didn't react, so America sent Congress people there to visit the island and as a slap to China. Then they continue to send warships through the Taiwan Strait. And now, while Joe Biden was discussing the tensions between the U.S. and China with President Xi, then another delegation goes into Taiwan. This is to keep pushing the limits to see how far you can creep up and nullify all the standing taboo limits. And so the same thing is with American NATO and what they're doing with Russia. All of this stuff will lead to an imperial decline. But let me read what this article says, because if you look up here, the title says, Russia warns it won't back down and stand off with NATO. It says, Russia won't back down in its standoff with NATO over Ukraine or in the Black Sea, and underestimating the country's resolve could be disastrous. Moscow's top diplomat in Washington has blasted amid worsening ties with the U.S. Speaking in an interview on Saturday with the Soloviev live YouTube channel, Ambassador Anatol, excuse me, I'm butchering his name, said that there are suggestions expressed here that some desperate head may appear in Ukraine or a group of fighters who will try to test the strength of the Russian defense, counting on the fact that we will not respond. I would like to say and emphasize unequivocally, this is a very dangerous situation, delusion. Now, the reason I'm saying this is because you can see this in the escalatory practice domestically. When someone is killed by the police officers, I don't care what, you can see all of the news. They're always demonizing the victim and vilifying the victim and demonizing the victim and upholding the aggressor. They do that. When the police is dead wrong, they will go to justify him, to give him cover. They will go through the past history of the victim. They don't go through the past history of the police department. They don't go through the past history of the police and all the complaints that the police had filed against him. They go through the history of the victim. And if the victim has no police history, they still try to connect him to some illegality or some thing that can give the police an upper hand against the victim. You see this in the domestic policy. Now you see it being mirrored in the international policy. This is what the Western world does. I know you have something to say.
They are the aggressors. What do you expect the aggressor to do but do aggression?
Yeah.
He's always starting, like, once again, Elijah Muhammad. He can't help himself. He's a troublemaker, a mischief maker. He cannot help himself any more than a dog can stop barking, or a lion can stop roaring, or a cat can meowing. America cannot help herself but to stir up some trouble. She is the troublemaker.
And I want to bring this to point, Rashid. Now, America is talking about dominating the Black Sea, which is tantamount to Russia talking about dominating the Gulf of Mexico. But America keeps sending these warships in there. Look how short their memory is. Do you remember just a couple of years ago, they sent their most advanced warship into the Black Sea and Russia shut down the entire ship? You remember that?
Brother, you don't understand. I'm exceptional. Right? I'm the exceptional one. That was that ship, but another ship should be able to take care of Russia. In Islam, it teaches us, see, this is the reason why these guys claiming to be ISIS and Al-Qaeda, those are not Muslims. A Muslim is never the aggressor. We don't go and bomb up innocent people. We don't start trouble. That's the West. They are the troublemakers. So when you find somebody going around and just killing this guy and killing that guy, no, these are American stooges. Mm-hmm. Even Prophet Muhammad told them once you finish with the war and they run off and don't chase after them. Mm-hmm. Then say go to their house and blow it up with a suicide bomber.
Yeah.
This is America. He cannot help himself but to start trouble. It's in his DNA.
Yeah. Yep. And so on that note, listen, the time has passed. I have we would stay on a little bit longer, but I have a few things that I must take care of. I have to, for those of you, I have to go down here and to the courthouse about jury duty and stuff like that, and tell them, try to get that out of the way. So I laugh
the
about
old
that
saying is the guy show up with an executioner mask. And they tell you, okay, you can go. We don't need you.
So I have to leave it at where we are right now. And I want to thank everyone for joining us on another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. Go over and to our Patreon over there, you'll get some nice information. There's a lot of new videos coming out and a lot of new articles coming out. As soon as I get the time to this week, I'll be putting them out there. Thank you. Go over to the Star and Crescent Report also, and also read the free articles over at the Hiram's 1555 blog. That's HIRAM 1555.com. You go over there, the Hiram's 1555 blog, read the free articles. Also, subscribe to the premium if you can. Support us in each and every way you can. We love you. We go out the same way we came in the name of Almighty God. And we want to say to you all, again, with love and peace, critically think through what has been said, regardless of color, regardless of ethnicity. Think about what is being said to you in these so-called alternative media spots and these so-called mainstream media spots, because they're leading you to a dead end. So we go out the way we came in. Remember, hey, Mom, I love you. I'll talk to you later. Everybody be safe. Peace.